Hello, welcome to the TBT guide on how to strip down and work on an Arms Tx200 air rifle. This guide works with the Tx200 full length, the Hunter carbine and also the prosport. First thing we need to do is remove the action from the stock. There are two screws at the front here and two underneath, which I've already undone. So that simply comes off. Place it to one side. Once we have the action out of the stock, the next thing is place the gun on a solid surface and push downwards on the barrel. You'll feel a small amount of movement as you take up the slack of the spring. So take up that slack and keeping the pressure, undo this little bolt here. Once undone, gently let off the pressure from the spring and remove the trigger block. Tipping it upside down, we'll get out the piston, the spring and the spring guide, and inside of here, usually held in with grease, is a top hat, so that might need a good bang to remove it. Now, using a TBT drop-in kit, we can replace these metal parts with fitted plastic ones. Inside the kit you'll find full instructions, please read them as well as watch the video. A small amount of molybdenum grease, a rear guide, a top hat, a piece of abrasive paper and some washers to help with preload and to act as a bearing. The first thing you need to do is take your steel top hat and match the size of this top hat shoulder with the supplied slip washers. You may need one or the other, or you may need both. In this case, both of them work out to the right size. So that's the configuration we're going to use at the front of the piston. The next thing we need to do, and this goes for all of the kits, is check that all the plastic fits in there without fouling so the gun will be able to cock. So we need to place those three items onto the piston latch, followed by the spring guide without the spring, and push it all the way down. That should sit flush on the back of the piston skirt. If it doesn't, the gun won't cock and you'll be wondering why it's not working. So check that first. So, next thing we need to do is check to make sure that our guides fit in the spring. Obviously this is a factory spring, these are all the same size, so this is the right size. So they go in there like that, and then placed with the washers already inside the piston, like that. Now, another thing to be aware of with the TX is, there is actually a raised portion on the back here that fits inside of that recess on the trigger block. It's a perfect fit in there, so it doesn't move around, but you need to make sure that it isn't too long and it has to sit perfectly onto the trigger block. If this part is too long and it sits ever so slightly proud, use the abrasive paper just to take it down to the right size. These washers here are to add preload to the spring. If once you've put it together you're not getting the power you require, you can use those to bring the power up. So that is the drop-in kit in place. Another item that we can do in the TX is a short stroke extension. This goes on the front of the piston, replacing the seal, which isn't on here because I always run an extension in mine, replacing the seal with an extension and a ARUK seal, which is more efficient. It reduces the swept volume by around about, I think it's 13 or 14%, which reduces the lock time, which reduces the recoil. To put that on, there are 3 grub screws around the edge, so you need to put each one down a small amount till it starts to grip. Then once it does, just check that all the way round it's concentric and that it's not off centre, and then just nip it up. Once you've tested it and you're happy with its position, I recommend using Loctite on those screws. The next part is lubrication. This is where a lot of people get it very wrong. The grease supplied with these kits is enough to do probably the same job 2 or 3 times. Use a very small amount on the guides where it touches against the spring, and a very small amount on the rear and front bearings of the piston, and the tiniest amount around just the outside of the piston seal there. Now, this is the one that comes with it. I also do tin bum slide, or bum slide, which is a very high molybdenum content grease. Instead of the usual air gun quantities, this is a very, very high, and rather than a liquid, it's more like a powder. And that much I've got my finger there is enough to do the seal. So it's like a wipe on, wipe off type thing. And the same around the front, and just the same around the rear. And that's it. And now put that back together. Slide it into the compression tube. Put pressure downwards to compress the spring again. And then just pop that bolt back in, and that's it. Thank you for watching this video. Please check my others.